Hi everyone, my name is Carol and I'm an interviewer with Wicked Connections. If you're watching this video, you likely already saw part one that we had with Yahia, which talked about what is data analytics. And if you are continuing to watch, I think this probably means that you're interested in potentially exploring the field. So this video is dedicated to understanding how can we start to explore a career in data analytics and maybe even start that career. So Yahia, for those who maybe didn't catch the first part, do you mind introducing yourself again?
Yes, I'm a product manager at a software company, and I focus on analytics. I was a data analyst for a couple years, and I worked as an engineer in consulting before that. So I've had a winding path of a career, but now I'm very much steeped in the world of data analytics.
Awesome. And I think, the fact that you had a winding path is actually pretty inspirational to start with because I think a lot of high school students put a lot of pressure on themselves to like decide what they're going to do for the rest of their life at the age of 16. But I think we can see from Yahia's career that you can pivot, you can make changes. And it sounds as though you are, when you say you're deeply entrenched, it sounds as though you're happy in your new field, which is awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about it. So if a student was interested in data science, how could they first get exposed to it? And please call out if there are any differences, at the high school level suggestions versus like the like post-secondary level. How can they first kind of dip their toes in the water?
The first way that people are typically exposed to data analytics is through Excel. So if you use Excel for a course in high school, then you are doing the basic things that end up being data analytics. So you're looking at data and you're trying to answer questions by looking at data and making sense of data. And that's fundamentally what data analytics is. Um, there are all sorts of extra things that you can do beyond that. A common thing in the professional data industry is to work with things called databases, and that requires some programming knowledge and a programming language called SQL, SQL. That is how it's spelled. And the way to get exposed to these things, there are many ways. Some people take courses online. If they go to a website like Coursera or udemy.com, some people like more of a gamified experience. So they go to websites like Kaggle.com, Kaggle.com. And on websites like that, there are competitions for people to learn and then start competing with other people when it comes to um, answering questions with data. Um, so, the most common way, though, to get exposed to these things is to take a short online course on, a massive open online course website like Coursera or Udemy. And there are probably a bunch of other ones. Every couple months, I see a new website pop up that offers online courses.
Gotcha. Okay, and for all the links that Yahia mentioned, it will be linked below. So don't worry about frantically scrolling down the names. We got you covered there. Okay, so that's really great, Yahia. So and
And YouTube.
Oh, and YouTube, yeah. So actually, I was just going to ask that because what about, I think when students are ready to do courses, that feels a little bit daunting. So is there a way, maybe more for the earlier students who are like, I watched your first part video, but I want to learn, still want to hear a bit more. Like, are there any types of like videos or podcasts that you would recommend or articles?
Well, there is a podcast that I enjoy. Now, people in the high school, early Gen Z age group, they don't listen to podcasts as much as millennials, for example. But if you do like podcasts, then my favorite data podcast is called Talk Python to me. And the word Python is in the name of the podcast because Python is a programming language that is extremely popular in the data industry and also in the software industry. So this podcast doesn't only talk about data analytics, but it's very often talked about. And it's a great introduction to a lot of the concepts that we work with.
Amazing. And I love the name. I'm going to watch a video just because their name is amazing. Okay, so students, if you are, serious, I urge you to go for it. And something that also helps me with courses is previously I thought, if I do a course, I need to get 100%. But maybe, you could take a different approach to course and like take it more exploratory, right? Like if you end up absolutely hating it, think about whether or not it's just because you're learning a new skill and it's hard, or if you actually do not like the fundamental concepts of data science. And if that's it, that's not failure, that's learning, right? You learn that this isn't for you and you learn something about yourself. Yahia mentioned before that one thing that data analysts have to be very good at is dealing with ambiguous situations. So, maybe when you're going through it, you realize like you really wish you had a rubric. That's how you think. That's a lesson learned, and that's awesome. And you can, maybe move on to another career and check out one of our other videos. But for those who are, maybe you continue to, enjoy the podcast, enjoy the courses, I wanted to understand, Yahia, from your perspective, if a student was, they're ready to take the next step, they're serious about it. What type of formal education should they consider, if at all? Like you mentioned Coursera, which is like pretty accessible, but what about post secondary?
Yeah, this question is kind of hard to answer because there are, 5 years ago, there weren't many options to choose from when you wanted to become a data scientist or data analyst. Typically, the people who work as data analysts now, their degrees are in math, business, engineering, um, what's the other one? Software, uh, computer science or software engineering. Those are the backgrounds that I typically see in this industry. But that doesn't mean that's the best thing to study if you want to be a data analyst, because most of the industry right now are people who came in from other professions. Um, and right now, there are programs popping up that specifically teach you data analytics. And I know of some college diploma programs that you can do straight out of high school that teach you data analytics. Um, some university programs are now emphasizing data analytics as part of their regular programs. For example, if you went to study engineering, there's more focus on data. Computer science, there's a little bit more focus on data if you want that. Um, so right now the options are still, you pick a conventional degree if you want to go to university, and then you just focus a little bit more on data. There are a few more courses that you can choose that are related to data compared to 5 years ago, for example. I think it was closer to 10 years ago that I went to university. Wow, I feel old. Um, Turning 30 in a couple days. So um, if you do, thank you. If you do want to go to university and get a degree, I wouldn't overthink what you want to study. Pick something that's interesting to you, but make sure that that's something that you can uh, use with data. There's a lot of courses related to data in that major that you choose. If you're somebody that prefers that to go to college, maybe only study for 1 or 2 years after high school, you can still be a data analyst. You can do a college diploma program. There are um, more and more of those popping up every year uh, in the Toronto area specifically. And you can do 2 years there, and you can be qualified to work with data.
Amazing. So, yeah, what I'm hearing is that there are a lot of options, not just between college and university, but also within like existing large university programs that they have some options to learn about data. So you don't have to necessarily go, all eggs in one basket data, but, as you said, maybe you're doing a computer science degree and you take some data courses and that opens your door to data and also other fields, which is really great because it's always helpful to have some options at the very least. So that's great. And Yahia, what about for someone who's in undergrad? They're wrapping up. They're going to finish their degree. Maybe they're in business or maybe even psychology, and they're like, hey, this isn't for me. I want to do data. do I have to redo, a degree? Like, how easy is it to be self-taught and actually be hired? What is your advice for them?
So this advice will depend on the person. It's definitely, you know, possible to be self-taught. If you have an undergraduate degree, that's typically enough for recruiters not to immediately throw out your resume if you're applying for jobs. One thing that I want to emphasize to high school students and undergrads is that a university degree is still important to have on your resume, no matter what it is, because recruiters are not the most sophisticated uh, judgers of your qualifications. Uh, they still see a degree and they think that person is smarter than somebody who doesn't have a degree. Unfortunately, uh, that's not the way things should be, but it's the way things still are in the present day. So having a degree is still very valuable, even if it's pretty much irrelevant to your job. Um, and even, it's very valuable if it's directly relevant to your job. But a degree or a diploma are still very important. So with that being said, um, if you are finishing up a degree or a diploma right now, you don't have to get another one if you want to switch careers into data analytics. Right now, and in the next couple of years, most of the professionals are still coming from other careers and they're retraining themselves to enter this industry. And the way they're doing that is with short online courses that take maybe a couple months at most, and teaching themselves using YouTube or free courses, or competitions like on Kaggle.com, where people do these essentially what are like little mini projects or homework assignments that are graded and compared to other people around the world. And that's a great way to learn. Um, there are people who choose to do another degree or another diploma, and those options are available. So, right now, there are many master's programs that have popped up that focus on data analytics, data science. So, those are 2-year programs. If you have an undergraduate degree, you can apply to those. There are postgraduate diploma programs. So, people who get degrees, they often do a specialized diploma at one of these schools in data analytics, and that's usually a year or two. Um, so those options are available, but you don't need to do those. If you're somebody who is a self-starter and you can be disciplined doing this on your own, there's definitely plenty of free and low cost, basically $10-20 a month courses online that you can use to switch industries. Now, some of the better options cost a little bit more, due to the quality. For example, datacamp.com. That's one of the most popular and highest quality data education websites. I think they charge something like 40 Canadian dollars a month for their platform. So we're not talking a huge amount of money or a huge time commitment to really switch. I would probably say, if you're diligent, you can really become qualified in less than a year.
Wow. So it sounds like even for folks who are already in undergrad, there's still so many options for them, whether it's formal education through the master's, self starter through courses. There are a lot of options, and that aligns with what you said before, Yahia, that it's just a growing and booming field. So we're still also trying to figure out what's the best way to teach it. So it makes sense that there's not one clear path. And it's also really reassuring to hear that many people enter the field, they get hired in this position, and they came from different backgrounds. So that should be a clear sign to everyone that if you want to do it, it's never too late. It truly never is too late if you're willing to learn. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Yahya, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.